My name is Shane McCrae. I live in New York City, a few blocks from Columbia University, where I teach poetry. I write poetry too. A lot of my poems are about race and American history. But the most painful thing for me to write about is my past and the secrets that my family hid from me. Secrets about my childhood that I still struggle to understand. I don't have any memories, really, of a time before. I was living with my grandparents. From my perspective as a child, I lived with my grandparents because my mother can't take care of me, because she was too young and had no memory of my father, no memory of his face. I didn't even know his name. My grandparents told me that my father abandoned me and just didn't want me anymore. Made me just hateful and angry. Until I was about 13 years old, I slept with the light on, fully dressed, and sometimes with my shoes on. I always had abandonment issues because of what I was told about what my father had done. My father had always been kept hidden from me, as if knowing about him would somehow fundamentally change who I am. I'm almost 50 years old, and I still don't know him as well as I would like to. What I've been told is that when my grandfather found out my mother was pregnant, he grabbed a rifle and threatened to kill my father.
His name was Morris Baker, and the only time I ever saw him in my life, he just kind of looked at me, turned, and walked away. Never saw that man again. But Denise's mom, Janice, she always treated me well. As a matter of fact, when I got to the hospital, Denise's mom was there. You know, and she comes over to me like, come on, you want to meet your son? And I'm like, yes. She takes me over, and here's this beautiful little baby. It was like me looking at myself. I had to make sure that this guy's gonna be okay. I knew that I had to be there in his life forever, just right there. When Shane was born, Denise was like, Stanley, I need to talk to you really quick. And she was like, my dad doesn't have anybody to carry on his name. So what he's asking is if you let him put Shane in the Baker last name, that when he passes, everything that he has will go to Shane. I'm just still extremely poor 20-year-old. And so I'm like, wow, he's gonna have a better start than I had. I knew for a fact that Denise and I could not be together. But I was in Shane's life. As Shane grew, you know, he would stay with her and he would stay with me. Shane's grandmother, Janice, was supposed to bring him back on Saturday, and we were gonna leave Sunday morning. And when he didn't come back, then it was like, whoa. So I went over to Shane's grandparents' place. The house was empty. And I'm looking through windows. There was no one at that house. Immediately, I knew that something was wrong. I was distraught. I called Denise. I'm like, Denise, your mom was supposed to have Shane back to me. She isn't here. And she's like, let me call my mom. She never called me back. I tried to get back in contact with Denise. She had disappeared. Why would somebody disrespect me like that and just take my kid and go? So I called a friend. He was a motorcycle policeman. I'm like, hey, so I'm having a problem with my son. I'm like, I need to go and get him. You know, what can I do? His name is Shane Baker, just in case he could look something up. And he says, oh, he's not in your name? And he says, if you go and get your son and his last name is Baker, I mean, you can end up going to jail.
We were fairly poor. I mean, he didn't have means to get a detective or a lawyer or money to try and go and find Shane. Seeing this, it just brings it all back to your face that so much was hidden.
Now all of a sudden, I realized that they manipulated this whole situation from day one. I had no idea that anybody would be that evil.
The general idea was to keep me from wanting to find my father. But I also think to get me to dislike Black people. My grandparents were very racist. And I was the target of their racism. My grandmother's family was Austrian. She sympathized with the Nazis. She taught me the Nazi salute. My grandfather was very physically abusive, and I didn't want to incur his anger. One memory I have, which is hardly a memory, it's really just flashes of this thing happening. When I was almost 4, I was crying about something, I wouldn't stop crying. And my grandfather threw me into a wall.
My grandfather's abuse never stopped as I got older. But in 1989, after I turned 13, I decided to take a stand.
He punched me and knocked me to the ground. And then I got back up and sort of stepped up to him. My grandmother had thought that I was really endangering myself, that she thought it was possible that he would kill me. And so she sent me to live with my mother in Raleigh Hills, Oregon. I was at home. I looked up my father in the phone book. I really didn't know what his first name was, but I knew it started with an S. I found an S. McCrae. It was kind of a shock. And so I called.
The phone rang, and I picked it up.
I asked if Stan Lee McCrae was there, because I didn't know if his name was Stanley or Stan Lee.
And I said, yes, and something just caught my gut. And I said, is this Shane? And he goes, you know who I am? And I had this whole visceral, like, oh my God, Stanley's not here. I can't let him hang up. Oh my God, like, don't blow it. I was so scared to lose this moment because I knew how important it was.
Candace called me at work and told me, Shane called. I'm like, what? No way. When I came home, Shane called again.
My father made plans to come see me right away. I didn't know what to expect.
I remember pulling up. He was standing on the sidewalk. He had a skateboard and a notebook. I walked toward him. This is my son. I knew I want to grab him and hug him. But it was something within me that says there's something that's happened with him. I couldn't hug him because I didn't know if he would push me away. I could tell that something was wrong. It wasn't the Shane I remembered.
I remember him being so reserved. He seemed like he was hurting. Like he was so quiet.
It was mostly small talk, but I could tell he was a little nervous. I was trying to get to know who he was again and see, what had happened to my oldest son.
What stopped me from calling my father earlier was how my grandparents had raised me. It is very difficult to shake that kind of stuff if it's what you've been taught from when you were like 4 years old. When I met my family, they were very welcoming, which made me a little sad because it made me think of the life I could have had.
After that day, I returned to my life, and my father returned to his. There were still so many buried secrets from my childhood. I didn't know how to talk about these secrets, and it kept a wall between us for the next 30 years.
I've always wanted to be closer with my father. I think it's not a matter of wanting to, it's more a matter of because of how my childhood was, because of being kidnapped. There's no like mechanism that I can find and kind of rewire it and then everything's okay. It's just sort of something very, very deep that I can't reach. I don't know how to reach it.
At 18, I had a daughter, Sylvia, and dropped out of high school.
What ends up happening is the kidnapping and my grandfather's abuse just sort of affects the lives of everybody that I know. It has affected my relationship with my father, and it affects the lives of my children.
I was divorced twice before I met and married Melissa. Our daughter, Eden, was born in 2010. At 35, I finally had a happy family. But the lies, secrets, and abuse inflicted upon me during my childhood continued to haunt me and separate me from my father and his family. Although I had reconnected with my father, there was still this distance between us. I didn't know how to deal with all of these secrets from my childhood, so it was easier to just avoid contact with him.
Shane's memoir is probably the hardest thing I've ever read in my life. And as I'd read more and more, the anger continued to build up. Denise, to me, is the operative person in the whole thing. Her parents disappeared with Shane. And then I find out that's exactly what Denise's mom had done with Denise. Disappeared with her from her father.
Morris Baker was my step-grandfather, actually. My grandmother had taken my mother from my mother's father, or my biological grandfather, when my mother was 2. Didn't tell my biological grandfather where my mother was. He didn't see her again, maybe ever? And there's just a feeling that her part in it, along with other people's parts in it, arose from a kind of disregard of how my father might feel about it. I can't quite get over that. I have really deeply held religious beliefs, and in that sense, yes. I have forgiven her, but I can't erase how I feel about it.
With Shane, you've put this type of hatred in his blood, and he can try to get away from it forever, but no matter how hard he tries, it's still gonna be there. Deep down inside, he's still gonna have those years of not caring for Black people. I don't know if a person ever really recovers from that. And then make it worse. In the book, it says that his birth certificate basically didn't even say who I was. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I got a copy of his birth certificate. And sure enough, it was just blank where it said father's name. Absolutely couldn't believe it. And so I knew that I needed to get his birth certificate fixed right.
When my grandparents kidnapped me more than 45 years ago, they built a wall between me and my father. But now I feel like I'm finally ready to break through. I feel like I've found what was always missing.
Didn't see you for so many years. Good Lord, what was that? 13 years or so. And then I remember the call, and of course, being so happy that you did call. It was amazing, because I could actually hear your voice.
I was a little anxious about it. It wasn't until I called Candace, I'm pretty sure that I actually learned what your name was. I had no idea what you looked like. I don't know, it's hard to describe, seeing your father for the first time when no one has conceptualized for you what he even looks like. Everything in my life had changed. How do you
fold yourself into another family, you know, make all those connections. Everything had been sort of broken loose from its foundation. That I had to make a sort of new foundation, which I
knew that it had to be pretty overwhelming. You know, I could tell you weren't the same Shane that I remembered from, you know, 3, 4 years old, almost 3.5 years old. I mean, because I don't know what you went through.